Oh, I think we're on. Good morning. Sorry about that. Welcome to the Crossroads Career Network webinar this morning. I'm so grateful that you're all here, and I'm looking forward to some great presentations this morning. And I know that you'll be encouraged and get some great information from our main presenter, Julie Louisbrock, and we've got other great information for you as well. Crossroads Career Network here in the Twin Cities. We have normally 3 locations, but we're combining efforts online for still a little while yet. We're looking at September as getting back to in-person meetings. So it's still a little ways out. We're being a little more cautious maybe or delaying things more than most, but we're looking forward to getting back to being able to see each other eye to eye. I am really glad that each of our webinars, we have a number of new people. So I'm going to be able to give you some a download of all that's available through Crossroads, and hope you can take advantage of multiple things to help with your job search. But part of our hope with Crossroads is that along with helping people succeed in their job search, we also talk about bigger issues and point people to the hope and encouragement of Jesus Christ. It should be no surprise that the Bible has a great deal of wisdom for life. And as Christians, we believe that the Bible is the Word of God, that He gave us He gave the writers His words so that we can know Him, so that we can understand how to be right with Him and how to have a relationship with Him. When we read it, God is talking to us. And in the Bible, Christ says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Meaning that only by trusting our lives with Christ, by believing He's the Son of God, that He came to live, die, and be resurrected, can we have life with God. To many people, that sounds too exclusive. Why would God give only one path to Him? Why wouldn't there be many ways to God? I can understand that, and I don't know why God chose to do it that way, but I'm grateful that there is a way. He could have created us and left us. However, He gave us a path to know Him and to be in relationship with Him. It may only be one path, but there is a path. When we go through challenges and transitions in our lives, maybe like a job search, it's common for people to ask what they really believe and why. It's a great time to ask if you have a relationship with God, one where He walks with you and never abandons you through all your challenges and trials. We're still going to have trials, but He promises that He's never going to leave us. If you have any questions or ever want to discuss it further, please reach out anytime. Let me open us with a prayer, and then I'll tell you all the ways you can get help with your job search through Crossroads, and we'll get to our other speakers. Lord, we just thank You for this time this morning to bring us together, and we pray that this time is used for Your purposes, that people get information that they can use, that's helpful for them, makes a difference in their search. We pray that they hear things that You would have them hear, and we pray that this time honors You in every way. Thank You, Lord, for all these things. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, with that, let me share my screen here, and I'll run through some things for you to know to be able to take advantage of Crossroads going forward. Again, welcome. And as those pictures show, people meeting face to face, and as much as we've been confined to doing things virtually online this past year, it really is better when we can see each other and have better conversations. We do everything online. There are things I'll describe here in a minute where you can see each other to a degree, but I'm going to look forward to when we actually can meet, and that'll probably be September. Keep your eyes open for when that comes about. Just so you know what to expect this morning, as I mentioned, give you kind of an overview here of Crossroads for a little bit yet. I am really glad to welcome Brian Horvath, and I'll explain who he is and how he's going to be joining us in a few minutes. Julie Louisbrock is privileged to have her join us this morning. She is going to be talking about connecting and communicating with the brain and mind, and how you can learn how to monitor what you're thinking and how your brain works to be able to connect better with others. I'll wrap up for just a couple minutes at the end, and then we'll be done by 9 o'clock. As I mentioned, we actually have 3 groups throughout the Twin Cities when we do meet in person, in Eden Prairie, Woodbury, and Arden Hills. And we'll be getting back to those in September, but you can watch our website for details with all the schedules coming up and what's going to happen when. So look, when we can meet in person, figure out which group is closest to you geographically, and be sure to join us there and get the same content in real life. If you haven't already, be sure to check out our website. There's a lot of detailed information about all of our events, schedules, times of, and how to sign up for things. Everything we offer is free so that you can take advantage of it without wondering if there's a bait and switch involved. I promise you there's not, and take advantage of all the resources available for you. But we also have on the website a job board that a number of companies know what we do. We literally have hundreds of people that come through each month on different things that we offer, and they want to access great people for the jobs that they have. So to pay attention, watch that regularly. One of the requirements for companies to post on our job board is that they include a contact name and contact information for a real live person. So if you have any questions or want to follow up, you have somebody you can reach out to versus just applying blindly online and hoping that somebody's going to call. So take advantage of that, watch what's there, and hopefully there's some opportunities that make sense for you. On a weekly basis, we have a number of things that we offer through Crossroads, and the more you take advantage of, hopefully the faster your job search goes, and you feel more confident in what you're doing. So we every Thursday morning at starting at 9 o'clock, we have our Networking with Grace group, which is strictly a networking group that for business professionals that we do by Zoom meetings online. And so there is some limitations as to how many people can be on that. So you do need to register in advance. If you go to the website, you can find the details and pre-register for that each week. But if you haven't checked it out, I really encourage you to do it, because it's a great way to get new contacts, new ideas, some leads from others in the group. Everybody is very helpful. It's led by Wes Tang and Wes Roper. We call them Wes 1 and Wes 2, but they do a fantastic job to make sure that everybody walks out with something each week. So check it out. It's a tremendous way to stay plugged in with others, get some fresh ideas and contacts, and be able to do that on a weekly basis. We have one-on-one coaching available online anytime. You can sign up through the website, and one of our volunteers will reach back out to you to set up either a phone call or a Zoom meeting, and you can talk about anything you want to regarding your job search, whether it's to talk about your resume, networking, interview skills, maybe do some mock interviews, whatever it is you want to discuss regarding your job search. Somebody's available for you to go through that with. So check it out online, sign up through there, and like I said, somebody will follow up with you. We know that job search can be an emotional roller coaster. It can throw you for a loop. If you've been in this for more than 2 days, you've probably already experienced that. And I just really believe the more spiritual support you can have through that, the better. It gives you a sense of greater peace, gives you some confidence and encouragement. And we have a team of people that I'm just so grateful for that are prayer warriors. They love to pray with you or for you. And so if you want to fill out the prayer request page on our website, somebody will be letting you know that they're praying for you. If you're feeling like your needs are a little further than that and really need somebody that you can talk through these things with more from a spiritual perspective, we have a soul care group for your job search as well. We have others that are not professional counselors, but they're really good at walking through this with you and praying with you. And there's another sign up on the website that you can reach out to people for that as well, and somebody will follow up. So take advantage of those, as whether it's the job search coaching or the prayer support. Take advantage of it as often as you feel led or want to. Kind of the meat and potatoes of what we offer through Crossroads, and where you can get the most in-depth and ongoing help, is through our small group classes. We are doing them with Zoom meetings online, generally anywhere from 10 to 15 people. And it's an 8-week class that covers every aspect of a successful job search. And we start with attitude, getting in the right frame of mind and dealing with any of that baggage. If you've worked for more than a couple of years, you probably have some baggage that you're carrying about your career, and you don't want that spilling out into your networking and in your interviews. And so we talk about those things. What are those things you need to be careful of, and how do you think through them, and how do you address them? We do some assessments to be able to gain some greater self-awareness. What are your real strengths and abilities and passions and interests that make you unique? What do you bring to the table that other candidates might not? We talk a lot about networking. If you haven't heard, networking is pretty critical to a successful job search, and we talk about that throughout the whole class. How to target companies. We talk about resumes and what to consider and best practices, interview skills, and different kinds of interviews that you're going to encounter and how to best navigate those. We talk about negotiating, selecting the right opportunity, and there's so much more. And we talk about God's perspective of your job search throughout for your job search and for your whole life. And I think that's very integrated. It's not just what you do on Sunday mornings that matters, but God cares about every aspect of your life. And so we talk about that as well. And as great as the content is, and we get so much positive feedback and people get confidence in what they're doing for their job search, I think equally important is just that weekly light accountability and encouragement and moral support, and just getting back up to that even keel emotionally so that you have new energy and drive for the next week, because this can really be a draining process sometimes. And so really encourage you to check out the information on the classes and sign up for ones that are coming up. We start a new class every month. This next month, we actually have one of our volunteers, Catherine Roseth, is going to be leading more of a boot camp version of it. It's going to be 5 weeks instead of 8 weeks, and more compressed, but we also are going to have additional classes starting every month. So check it out online, take advantage of it. I really hope you do, because like I said, it's the most in-depth and ongoing help you can get, and hopefully give you a much greater sense of that you're doing the right things for your job search. Check out, if you haven't already, our LinkedIn group and join it. If you put MN Crossroads Career Network in the search box on LinkedIn, you'll find us. And we have over 2,000 people in that group now, and it's primarily alumni, people that have gone through Crossroads in the past through their own transition and want to be available for others. And so if there are companies that you're looking for contacts at, this is a great place to check out. Go see if there are people in our group that are working at those target companies of yours, and reach out. They're not promising that they're going to refer you or get you a job, but they are willing to talk with you and give you advice and encouragement in terms of and ideas of how you can best pursue opportunities in that company. And am asked all the time by people, how can they give back? That Crossroads has been helpful and worthwhile for them, and they want to help others in return. This is a great way. Get in the group while you're looking for your job, and look for help and opportunities there. But be available in that group after you land in a new job, and be available for others to reach out to you as well. Also on that LinkedIn group, there's a lot of additional information on recruiters post opportunities in there. There's notifications of events and all kinds of other encouraging stuff. So join the group, check it out. All of our previous webinars, and this one will be posted later as well, are now on our YouTube channel. And so check that out. Also, MN Crossroads Career Network. You'll find us, and you can find previous webinars on there and listen to speakers that we've had before. And you can review this one. It'll be up there by tomorrow sometime at the latest. Check that out. As additional resource that we're just getting launched with here, 𝙅𝙪𝙡𝙀 has been a tremendous partner for us. They've supported Crossroads for years in many ways, financially, as well as with resources and people that have volunteered. I'm just very grateful for them. But we're partnering with them to offer a rotating regular monthly webinar, actually 3 webinars each month, on financial considerations during your job search. And I really encourage you to check them out. The information is on our website, and you'll see schedules and details and ways you can register. You can go review them anytime, take advantage each month. But certainly a job transition can put in a lot of turmoil, and so financial turmoil. And so they help you with some ideas of how to navigate that, and encourage you to check it out and take advantage of that as well. But I'm grateful for 𝙅𝙪𝙡𝙀 of all the ways that they've contributed and helped. Just want to acknowledge real quickly, we have over almost 45 people right now, actually, that volunteer with Crossroads in one way or another, and I'm grateful for each of them. All the things we do can't be done with one or two people, and I'm grateful of all the people that give of their time and expertise and effort to help you through this process. And I just want to acknowledge all of them and thank them as well. And if you don't have a church home on Sunday mornings, I encourage you to check out one of the churches that support Crossroads as well: Woodbury Lutheran, North Heights Church, and Grace Church in Eden Prairie. Check us out online. We stream, but all of them are meeting in person now as well. And so really encourage you to check that out as on top of everything else. With that, let me unshare my screen here, and I will, I'm glad to introduce to you Brian Horvath. Brian is actually joining us from Tampa this morning. So it's one of the advantages of doing these things virtually. We can have people join us from multiple locations. And Brian has actually become a friend, but he used to be the executive director for our Crossroads national organization. And he's done a lot of really fascinating things since then as well. And I'm really glad to have him share a little bit this morning of what he's been learning in the process. Brian, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Harry. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the party this morning, and so thankful to be here with you guys. Really encouraged. Thanks to all the volunteers. I mean, Grace Church and Eden Prairie, I mean, you guys are known throughout the country as being a powerful force in career ministry, and it's really cool to see all the people you've served and all the people that served with you over the years, just looking at some of those slides. And so well done, guys. Glad to be here. And so what I'm going to talk about today and have the opportunity to speak to today is, really experiencing God in career transition. It's one of those things years ago that I had a chance to do and still do every day. But I thought, as I was asked by Harry to share, this really came to mind, how I've experienced God throughout the journey, throughout the transitions in my life. But before I get to that, I have to brag and share about my family everywhere I go. This is Team Horvath here. My wife, Becky, my little girl, Ella, who's 3, and my little boy, Grayson, who's 6. This is a little outdated of a photo, but shows the joy of our family. This is from Easter 2020, but had to brag on those guys and show off my family. So the backstory, though, a little bit of here, how we're connected to Harry, he shared, we become friends and become partners in ministry throughout the country together. And it's really been exciting to see. There is one specific job transition and career transition I want to share, but before I get into that, this is pretty cool, I think, is that years ago, I was in the wine and spirits business, managing territories in Florida. And I went from the wine and spirits business and got introduced to Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, and was able to, throughout some trials and tribulations, some real challenges in my life, as opposed to me attempting to take my own life, which I did at one time. I met Jesus, and he rescued me from myself and put me up on solid ground, helped me to stand firm and to be excited about what he has planned and purpose for me. And so I wasn't able, thankfully, to take my own life. And I got involved in church. And actually our church here locally in Tampa is called Grace Family Church, that I attended, and really got encouraged by people there and started serving there and volunteering there. And I went there for some help that I needed in my finances. I really needed to manage money better. And while I was learning how to manage money better, I got excited about volunteering in that same area. And I got excited about helping others with the same help that I needed. And that led me on a path to transition out of the wine and spirits business into the Holy Spirit business, as I like to say, into actually full-time vocational ministry at Grace Family Church. So a little backstory, that's a quick first transition that I experienced. God's saving grace for me and helping me through trials I was going through my life. He took me from broke, busted, and disgusted, I call it, to healed, whole, and helping others through volunteering at my church. And so much so that I was able to create a plan of a ministry plan, or a business plan, if you will, how I can continue to do that as a job, as my career, and made a big transition there. But what I really want to share with you today is how I went from leading at a local church ministry to Crossroads Career, as Harry mentioned, as executive director of a national ministry, to actually getting the final push to launch my own business, where I'm a speaker, consultant, and coach, helping people to know, live, and love the purpose for their career and finances. And I really believe people like you and like me, we need to remember that our purpose is not our career and finances in our life. And for so many of us, that is a drive, right? It was for me. And I think ultimately that led me to being at the end of myself. I was so sick and tired of chasing the corner office or chasing the paycheck or the 6 or 7 figures, whatever the case may be, that I forgot that my career and finances weren't my ultimate purpose. They were tools to help me accomplish my life purpose. And so that's what I really want to share with you today, how I transitioned out of that. And so at Grace Family Church, I was able to do a lot of fun things that I never thought I'd be able to do at work. I was able to lead Financial Peace University classes. Maybe some of you have attended that. That changed my life. I was able to not only lead that, but to create our own courses and classes through the perspective and paradigm that God had showed me in my own financial journey to help others like me. And I created workshops and webinars and a Money Mentors program to help serve people one-on-one. And then I got introduced to Crossroads Career, and helping people in their careers was a great joy. So I had an opportunity to do all those kinds of things at Grace Family Church. But at one point, as much as a blast I was having, as much as I was learning, getting excited, I realized I was getting burnt out too. And I started getting, as you learn at Crossroads Career in step 2, a bad attitude. And how was I going to correct that? And a lot of things I did and said that shouldn't have been done or shouldn't have been said. I should have been fired. My attitude was horrible. I thought it was all about me. But somehow, some way, God created a crisis for me, a crucial moment of conversations. Maybe some of you have heard that book, Crucial Conversations, that led me to have almost like what I thought was going to be an all-out verbal brawl with some key leaders in the church, some founding members of the church. And here I am spewing all this anger and frustration over the years to these folks and thinking, I'm going to be fired today. Today is going to be my last day at Grace Family Church. But you know what? God had bigger plans. And it was actually my best day because I was finally able to air out and unearth the challenges and frustrations. And those leaders that listened to me, thankfully, were more mature leaders in the church, and they were able to hear me out and help me work through those. And as a matter of fact, they saw some blind spots in them, and it became the best day and really was a pivotal moment in my career. But it didn't take away the fact that I still was thinking there was something out there that's different for me that I need to pursue. And I told my lead pastor that I was bored. Who does that? Who tells their boss they're bored? But I felt I needed to be transparent and honest. And you know what? He heard me too. I was about to go on stage to speak to thousands of people at our church. And I said, Pastor Craig, I'm bored. He goes, And so I remember that day specifically. But you know what? He heard me and we talked about what could we do differently? What could we do differently? All in all, I think, but for God, I would have been done with that day. And I realized that God had something bigger and better for me. He had a message for me through this book I discovered called Experiencing God by Henry Blackaby. And Experiencing God helped me and those who study it to know, understand, and actually apply and live out the will of God. And my men's group and I, we've been meeting for multiple years. It's called Eagles. It's a mastermind and Bible study of business leaders here in Tampa. And we come together and we talk about this. And we went through this huge book. I have it right here, matter of fact. Maybe you can see it. It doesn't even have the cover on it anymore. It's how much I use this thing. And that really set me on a path to change. And in that, it teaches you 7 things that God wants to share with us. It teaches us this framework in experiencing God, that God is always at work. And he's working to pursue a continuing relationship with us. Harry, you alluded to that earlier this morning. He's inviting all of us to join him in the work that he's already doing. He doesn't need us, but he desires us to partner with him. And when he's doing that, he speaks through different people, like his Holy Spirit, like the church. He speaks to us through prayer. He speaks to us through classes or groups or networking meetings just like this. And when we desire to follow him, or we start checking out what God's all about, there'll be a crisis of belief going, God, really? Is this what you have for me? Is this really what you want for me? It always will create a crisis of belief. And it did for me. I'm going to share with you about that in a second. But when we decide to take on God's invitation, as I learned in Experiencing God, as I learned through my own career transition, as I learned through being bored at Grace Family Church in that role at that time, I had to make some major adjustments in my life. Either I need to get my attitude right and stay, or I need to find ways to depart and depart well and leave that position well. Finally, we have to obey and experience God. And that's kind of the whole framework of this Experiencing God book. It was really encouraging, really encouraging. And then I got a chance to go to serve as executive director of Crossroads Career. And in that journey, in between starting the Mastermind Eagles Bible study with Experiencing God, God started doing exactly what he was talking about in that Experiencing God book. He started nudging me, calling out to me, pricking my heart, if you will. And he started saying, there are opportunities out there, Brian, beyond what you're doing right now. If you choose to follow me, if you choose to believe me in this crisis of belief. And what I want to share with you is this little book here, this little excerpt from what I was going through at the time. This is from page 29 of my Experiencing God book that I just showed you. I had no clue of what is to come. But in my journaling there, or in my answering of the questions it was asking me, I had put down here, so God, I have a question. Is Grace Family Church where I'm supposed to be? Please keep me, or please help me in the rest of my steps, my next steps to the answer. Can you please show me how to get what I want? Wait, to wait for you? To source power from you and not myself? You know what is bouncing around in my mind. Thoughts of leaving Grace, maybe go to corporate world, maybe to pursue other ministry opportunities, maybe to finally start my own business. But fear, capital words in here, fear is holding me back. It's leading me instead of you, God. It's got me all stressed out. My body is weak and my mind, in my head, it hurts. I need you, Jesus, help. Guys, that was on August 15th of 2017, August 15th of 2017. And check this out. Even days later, God started already working. Amidst of a Hurricane Irma back in 2017, I get a phone call from a guy named Tim Krause. It says to me, Brian, we've met before. We're connected here on LinkedIn. I saw on your profile that you're open to new opportunities. I put that right in my headline. And the LinkedIn stuff that I teach, I talk about getting your keyword strategy. And then in your headline, if you're open to new opportunities, put that in your headline so people can see that immediately. And he called me and I said, Tim, I'd love to consider the Crossroads Career Executive Director position that he told me they were looking to fill. I said, but we got a problem here. Hurricane Irma may decimate Florida. Can I call you after we're through this? And of course he said, sure. But what he didn't know either, and I may have told him, but what I want to share with you is that a couple days after Hurricane Irma, my second child was born, little Ella Catherine Horvath, September 3rd, 2017. So amidst of a career transition, a major Category 5 storm supposedly coming through Florida, and a birth of my new daughter, this was all going on at one time. Amazing stuff, amazing stuff. But for God, the journey continued. And I decided to take steps to look at this transition. God heard my prayer. Amidst of all the circumstances, he wanted to hold my hand and lead me through. Hopefully he's doing that with you. Hopefully you're allowing him to do that. And I started having conversations with my dream team. I believe everyone should have a dream team. And that dream team started with God. God, what do you want me to do? What's next for me? Started talking with my wife. Hey, I got this phone call from a guy named Tim. You don't know him. I barely know him. Here's what he's thinking. What do you think? My Eagles group, the guys I talked to you about that I meet, and then mentors in my life that had experience with either raising funds as executive director of nonprofit world, or have been in sales, or been in directing ministries across the country, just brought those mentors together and asked them what they thought. And then over some months, I had phone calls and interviews with the founder, Brian Ray, the board of directors, the board chair himself. And finally, we decided to take next steps to have interviews face-to-face with the board chair. And another idea we had was face-to-face interviews with my inner circle, my dream team, key members of my life, my board of directors, if you will. Dave Sparkman, who was part of Grace Church for many, many years, met with my friends, met with my mentors, and they challenged him and asked him questions. What are you going to do if this doesn't work out? How are you going to take care of Brian? And of course, Dave asked them questions about me and my character. Finally, the big one, guys, my wife the interview, the spousal interview that I believed we should have, so we're all on the same page. And this all took time, a midst of transition. In that time, I also talked to my pastor, and he was thinking about, Brian, I also have other ideas for you. What do you think? Now I got to consider staying. I thought I was leaving. All this happens when we believe and trust God, but there will be a crisis of faith, a crisis of belief. Finally, as you already know, because Harry alluded to, final negotiations were had in January 2019, negotiations for salary and provisions and next steps. And then I asked Dave Sparkman, Dave, are you offering me the job? And he's big smile in my kitchen at my house in Tampa. He said, yes. I believe it was experiencing God, doing a study, spending time with him, bringing others involved, being in prayer, that this worked out. And guess what? That's not where the story ends. We had a chance to, at Crossroads, rebrand everything, rebuild our website, recreate our workbook. And I had a blast doing it. I learned a lot of great skills. It was enjoyable. The skills I learned that have helped me launch my own business, the Horvath Training Institute, where I help people like you and like me to know, live, and love the purpose for a career in finances. And it's been exciting. It's been exciting, not been easy, because guess what? As soon as I started the business, COVID came. Woo, thank you, Jesus. But he's been providing other opportunities. Maybe this opportunity, speaking to you, wouldn't even come available had it not been for God's work through COVID. And so this is what I get to do, helping people know, live, and love the purpose for their career and finances at brianhorvath.com. But I wouldn't have had the opportunity had I not gone through Grace Family Church and working there, had I not gone through executive directing Crossroads Career that gave me so many skills and opportunities and connections to learn how to run my own business by running a ministry, to be able to have the gumption and the lack of, well, minimize fear, not completely gone. Still need to lean on God every day and deny that false evidence is appearing real. That's what fear is, right? And take on what he wants me to do to help people know, live, and love the purpose for their career and finances. So really excited to be here and share with you. Just want to encourage you to lean into God. Don't stop. Keep attending these meetings. Keep connecting with Harry and all those tools and resources that he offered, and it will work for you. And again, the framework, experiencing God, he's already working. He's inviting you to a relationship first with him. And as you build a relationship with him, he wants you to work side by side with him. Then he's going to call you out. He's going to speak to you, whether audibly maybe, but most likely through his Holy Spirit, through prayer, through others, through church, etc. But when you decide to follow him, there will be a crisis of belief, a crisis of faith. It will be a wrestling match, just like Jacob wrestled with the angel of God. And then you have to make adjustments. Family, your current work, your future work, whatever the case may be, your attitude, your mind shift, all that stuff will come. But as you obey and follow God and trust in him, you will experience God. And that's what I'm going to encourage you guys to do today. So if you don't mind, I have one more tool to share with you. It's 2 scriptures. God is starting a work today. Maybe it's today. He's starting a work with you today. He's going to complete it. God is a finisher. I don't know about you, but I like to start a lot of things, but I don't always finish them. I have to really get over that sometimes, like, oh, maybe this won't work. Oh, I can make it better. You know, perfection is the enemy of progress, right? But God promises in his word right there, he will complete what he's finished, or he will complete what he started. And then he also wants us to be strong and courageous. And you don't have to do that alone. You can be strong and courageous together. And in Deuteronomy 31:6, it says, do not be afraid. Do not be terrified because of them. Let's say them as our enemies, the world, our inner mind that convinces us that we can't do something. Whatever the enemy is to you doing what God's calling you to do, he's going to be with you. He never leaves us nor forsakes us. He never leaves us nor forsakes us. And I wrote about a lot of that in my book. You'll see that there right on the screen. You can download it for free. Thank you, Harry, for the opportunity to share this. I want to help you know, live, and love the purpose for your career and finances. They are tools to help you overcome the obstacles, to accomplish your ultimate purpose. You can download it at brianhorvath.com/book, brianhorvath.com/book. It's really been an honor, guys, to be here with you today. Really been an honor to be here with you guys today. I thank you so much. So if you got questions, again, email me, brian@brianhorvath.com. Love you guys, and thank you so much, Harry.
Thank you, Brian. Really appreciate it. I loved watching your journey the last couple of years that I've known you, and just look forward to all the stuff coming. Thanks so much for sharing. I am really glad and privileged to be able to introduce Julie Louisbrock. This is a woman that knows of what she speaks. She has a degree in psychology. She has an MBA, and she has a doctorate in organizational development. She's had and continues to have a tremendous career. She's been until 2 years ago, she was the chief HR officer for Deluxe Corporation, and currently has a consulting company that helps individuals and executives figure out their purpose and a number of things in their lives as well. Really grateful to have her. Thank you, Julie, and I'll turn it over to you for the next hour.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for having me, and I'm excited to be here. I'm going to share my screen with my slides in a minute, but what I would say to you all is we're going to spend time talking about the brain. And what I want you to think about is, you know, you talk about God. God has given us this beautiful supercomputer in our head, and you can choose what program you want that supercomputer to run. And that's really all about your mindset. And so you can choose who and how you show up to be every single day by employing some of the knowledge that we're going to gain today about our brain, about our mindset, and really amp yourself up. And what I want you to do when we're thinking of and walking through this presentation today, what I want you to do is I want you to ask yourself some questions. How will I use this information? When will I use this information? Why must I use this information? And kind of put those questions out there for yourself, because when we ask ourselves questions, then our brain starts to attach to what it's learning, and there might be a nugget or two that you gain from today that's going to help you. So let me share my screen here. And I want to make sure, okay, is it working? I'm thinking it's working. So, okay.
It is.
So, all right, perfect. Thank you. So we're going to talk about the brain today. And like I said, I love talking about the brain. I've spent a lot of years learning about the brain, and it's really helped me in terms of understanding why I respond the way that I do to situations. So we're going to go through some brain basics, talk about the organizing principles of the brain, and the implications of being in threat state versus reward state, and how that can impact the way that you think and your performance. But all is not lost. I'll share some emotional regulation techniques. I've also given Harry some additional information. I'll only go through a few emotional regulation techniques today, but there's other information in a packet, and you can always reach out to me. And then what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the SCARF model. And that's an acronym, and we'll go through that. It's really all about how do we navigate social? How do we know how we're being impacted? And how do we bring our best selves to the social environment? And think about it, the workplace is a huge social environment. All right, so let's get started. And I'm going to be kind of talking fast and sharing a lot of information so that I can get through this with you. And again, like I said, you don't have to be a neuroscientist to learn about this information. Take a nugget here or there that gives you an aha moment that will help you. But we're going to talk about two regions of the brain this morning. First, the conscious brain. And what I want to share about the conscious brain, you guys have heard about the prefrontal cortex. What does this conscious brain do for you? It's that top-down thinking. It is that executive thinking. It's that part of your brain that solves complex problems, right? This is the part of your brain that is relies on understanding, deciding, memorizing. It's also the part of your brain that holds your working memory, how we process, what we process. But I want you to know a couple of things about the conscious brain. First of all, your prefrontal cortex, it's a small part of your brain. There's not a lot of real estate in your brain that's associated with the prefrontal cortex that does a really important job. And then what I want you to know, it's evolutionarily the younger part of your brain. okay? And it's very, very fussy. So what I want you to think about, it is very energy intensive. This part of your brain, 20% of the brain's oxygen and glucose are used when you're using this part of your brain. Also, it gets distracted very easily. So if you're trying to think, if you're trying to focus and you have your phone on, people are coming in and out, you hear the dings of text, man, that really depletes these resources and you can't use them very well. So it has limited capacity. I want you to think about your own circadian rhythm. When do you think best? What parts of the day are good for you to do really good focus? And use your prefrontal cortex at those parts of the day if you can. If not, there's something called the Pomodoro Technique where it says you can focus for 10 to 25 minutes really well, then take a 5-minute break and infuse yourself with some more energy. But again, this conscious brain, really fussy, easily distracted, but it does a really important job for you. It's that top-down, rational, executive functioning and thinking. Now, the next part of your brain that I want to talk to you about that's really important to understand is the non-conscious brain. This is the limbic system. This is, I'm sure many of you on this presentation have heard of the amygdala. This is that fight or flight response. When things happen, boom, do I fight? Do I flight? There's an alarm going off in my head. This is the part of your brain that carries the emotional experience. There's 5 times more real estate in this part of your brain than there is in the conscious part of your brain. So think about that. This part of your brain is scanning the environment 5 times every second to say, am I okay? Is there helpful things going on or is there harmful things going on? Do I have to be alerted or pay attention to something? Am I going to be okay? This is the part of your brain that loves to have prediction, loves certainty, because it wants to make sure you're safe. That's what this part of your brain does. And it's very reflexive. Where the conscious part of your brain was that slower processing and that reflective part of your brain, this is the reflexive part of your brain. Something happens, boom, I'm alert, I'm alarmed, and it's making toward decisions or away decisions all the time. It's processing a lot of information, and then it's routinizing or habitualizing those things because it has to conserve its energy because it's taking in a lot of information. I want you to think about the environment that we live in. This is a very evolutionary old part of your brain. You know, back in prehistoric times when they were worried about a saber-toothed tiger jumping out of the bush, fight or flight, that was the kind of distraction that would happen. In today's day and age, we have distractions galore. And this part of your brain is always finely attuned to them. And it does not differentiate between the type of distraction or the type of threat. Physical, physiological, psychological, somebody didn't smile at me. It looks at all of those the same way, okay? All right. Now, we talked about reflexive and reflective. Reflexive is that fast thinking, that limbic system, that emotional part of your brain, and reflective, the prefrontal cortex, that top-down thinking, that controlled part of your brain. I want you to think about these 2 parts of your brain like a neural seesaw, okay? So when limbic is on, emotional is on, impulsive is on, the lights are on there, the lights are out in reflective. If you're lit up in emotional, you're not going to be lit up and inhibiting and thinking very rationally. In the same way, when you've dampened that arousal in the limbic, and now I'm in that reflective part of my brain, the lights are out in the limbic system. And this is really important because all of the stimuli that impact us goes through that limbic system. And it's really important for us to learn from our mindset, from the way that we start our day, from the way that we encounter every experience, how to engage regulation techniques so that, when we have that reflexive piece going on, we dampen it and we can get to reflective. Okay. That was a lot of information. You probably feel like a fire hose is coming at you, and I apologize for that. But there's a lot of good information here that really helps you understand how your brain is wired and the things that you can do to make it work best for you. All right. So what is the brain's organizing principle? The brain is here. Your brain, its goal every single day, minimize threat, maximize reward. Keep you safe, keep you alive every single day, scanning the environment to make sure no threat, no hurtful thing happens, and helpful things happen. And so if you wake up in the morning and make it through the day and your head hits the pillow at night, the brain has done its job. It's kept you safe through the day. Now, something to realize as it relates to the brain's organizing principle. The brain has a negativity bias. You see, away or threat is bigger than toward or reward, okay? So what this just means is bad is stronger than good. When a threat, when you're alerted, when you're alarmed, when that happens faster, it lasts longer, and it is stronger than the toward state. So as your brain is scanning, it's looking for things it needs to pay attention to. And if something happens that it's going to be alerted, that like in that amygdala, it's going to come on pretty fast and strong. But there are things that you can do to manage that and to dampen that down. But just be aware that brain has a negativity bias. All right, so, Julie, what does all of this mean anyway? Okay, so who cares, right? Well, the thing that's important to realize, you guys, is that depending upon what state your brain is, it impacts your performance, it impacts how you react, it impacts your thinking. So, what are the implications when you're in a threat state? What does that do to your thinking? What does that do to your performance? Well, let's think about this for a moment. What are some of the kinds of things that can put you in a threat state? Fear, anger, confusion, social rejection, feeling like you're in the out group and you're not included. Those types of things can put you in an away state or a threat state. What happens to your brain and the way that you think? Tunnel vision. If I'm in that threat state, I am not seeing the bigger picture. It's tunnel vision that's happening. And what's happening? I don't communicate as well. I don't collaborate as well. And that prefrontal cortex that's so important for this top-down thinking, those resources are depleted. That's shut down in a threat state. So now I can't complex problem solve, and my risk-taking and innovation, those are minimized. So I'm threatened, all right? But if I am in a reward or toward state, what can happen is all of that changes. So what are the types of things that can put you in a reward or a toward state? Joy, happiness, excitement, curiosity, and challenge. Yes, even a challenge, because our brain likes to be challenged and we need a little stress to be optimally performing. So what happens when you are in this toward state in terms of performance or thinking? My field of view now opens up. I think more broadly. I look at things, even if I'm in a challenge, I can look at things like there's possibility, opportunities, and solutions. If I get myself into a toward state by either breathing, or we're going to go through some of these techniques, I have more working memory. My prefrontal cortex is working. It's employing this top-down thinking. I can problem solve better. I communicate better. I collaborate with people better. And I have more creativity. I have more insights and innovation. So the whole goal is, you guys, is understand our brain, know that these things are happening, but employ some techniques to keep us or to move us into this state where we can bring on board our best thinking. All right. So I don't want you guys to feel like, oh my gosh, Julie, this is a bummer. You're telling us of all of these things that are happening. I want you to be aware of what's happening, but you can do things. You can put yourself in, and I'm going to share, like I said, a few things that you can do to move yourself from threat to reward. But I also want you to be equipped, and I want you to realize that when threat happens, your brain moves through different levels of it. And it does impact you differently. And so what I like to share is I like to share these levels of threat that we go through when we're under stress or when a crisis hits. And maybe we think about COVID, level 1, level 2, level 3. And I'll use COVID as an example, okay? So COVID, probably December 2019, January 2020, you heard about it. You heard about this virus that was happening. It was in the broader environment. You were hearing about it on the news. You might have been alerted, but you weren't alarmed. Your cognitive abilities were not impacted negatively. You still were functioning. I was hearing about that. No big deal. I'm aware of it. I'm alerted, but I can still kind of work through my day-to-day work and things are going okay. Now we move to a next level of threat, level 2 threat. Maybe this is like February timeframe, later February, and early March before we shut down, where all of a sudden it's in the United States and it's in Minnesota. And you go, oh my gosh, it's in my neighborhood. Now I'm not just alerted, but now I'm alarmed. That's level 2 threat. My heart's pumping, my blood pressure's rising. I'm a little bit more stressed out when I'm in level 2 threat. And now mistakes begin to happen cognitively. And that's when I start to deplete my prefrontal cortex and I start to go from that kind of that broad thinking. Now I'm starting to get more tunnel vision. Level 3 threat is boom, everything is shut down. We're in Minnesota now, we're sheltering in place. And now we're in a place where it's impacting me physically and mentally. And now I have no cognitive resources really to speak of. I'm making many, many mistakes and original thinking is not happening. And I'm challenged. All right. Well, what do we do about that? Well, you know, when we were on airplanes, many of us haven't been on an airplane for a while, when they said, when the oxygen mask drops down, if we need that, you need to put your oxygen mask on before you help someone else. And I would say this is really important here. Anytime you're in this level of threat or in heightened threat where you feel stressed out, what is it that you need to do to put your oxygen mask on to help you move from level 3 to level 2 to level 1? Because be aware that whether you're in the work environment and a leader, your employees are going to mirror the kind of threat or the kind of role model that you are creating. If you're a coach, whether you're a coach for your work or you're a coach for Little League, the people that surround you are going to take on your threat level. So it's really important that you know what to do in order to manage your level of threat. Here's some ideas. When you're in a threat level, there's some buffering techniques you can take on. Remember, I said the brain likes certainty. So if you're feeling stressed out, and maybe you're feeling stressed out in your job search, get a routine, give yourself some certainty, put together a schedule. When you put yourself together a schedule and you adhere to it, it decreases levels of stress. How about autonomy, choices? If I'm stressed, but I feel like I have some choices in a certain area of my life, and I can determine where I can make some choices, I decrease my stress level. Another way to decrease your stress level is relate to people. Whether you can do it face to face, we've not been able to do that. Call people up, connect with somebody, create a network. This Crossroads Network is a phenomenal network for you. That decreases your stress level too, so you can employ great top-down thinking and be able to move through levels of stress. Okay, I'm going to share a few other emotional regulation techniques before we get on to the SCARF component, because it's really important to know that these things are happening, but there are things that we can do in order to shift them. So one of the emotional regulation techniques that you can use, and the whole purpose of emotional regulation techniques is to dampen down that limbic system and that arousal. Okay, and one is called reappraisal. See things differently, see things more positively, take on a different perspective. So if a situation is happening to you, you feel stressed, slow it down, step back, change the way that you think about it. Instead of going, oh my gosh, this is terrible, this is terrible, this is terrible, you could be saying, this is a challenge. How can I think about that differently so I can react and respond to it? Even by doing that, even by making that kind of a shift. You know, as Brian talked about, or Harry talked about, many of you maybe saying a prayer, maybe, you know, asking God, okay, how do I think about this differently? That starts to dampen down limbic. And there are some examples: reframe, normalize, reorder, reposition. Let me use reframe and give you an example. A way that you can reframe something. Let's say you have a meeting with someone and they're late for the meeting. You're on Zoom, you're waiting for them, and they don't show up right away. Your brain could go into, don't they respect me? How come they're late? Don't they want to meet with me? And if you go down that path, we get into that threat state and our thinking isn't on board. Our best thinking isn't on board. Or you could reframe and go, you know what? With this Zoom technology and these back-to-back meetings, people are challenged. I'm sure the person is finishing up their previous meeting and they'll be on shortly. So just reframing that puts you in a whole different state. It puts your mindset in a different state where we reframe and we now lean in. Another way to think about it is to go, okay, this person is late for the meeting. I have some other things to do. I can look at some emails, or maybe I use some breathing techniques and prepare for my meeting. A different way to reframe when something negative is happening. What can I do to move my brain from threat, rather than continuing to go down that rabbit hole, to reward, so I can put my best foot forward, so I can lean in and have my best thinking. And that's really important. Another technique that you can use, you guys, is what's called labeling. And you know how when you encounter a situation and maybe you're anxious about it, and you tell yourself, I'm not anxious, I'm not anxious, I'm not anxious, and you push that anxiety down, guess what happens? When you suppress it, it explodes. Just acknowledge, I'm feeling anxious about this. I'm going to acknowledge that I'm feeling anxious. I'm a little bit nervous about this interview that's coming up. However, I'm going to acknowledge it. Now, what I'm going to do is go, it's normal to be anxious, but I'm going to set it aside. And now I'm going to prepare for my interview. Okay. And so when you're doing that kind of thing, again, the whole goal, you guys, is to dampen down the limbic. Why do we want to dampen that down? Because we want to employ our best brain. We want to employ our best brain for our brightest lives. Okay. And that's really important. Not only can you use this labeling for yourself, but if you have people that work with you, for you, your children, do it with them. If they're feeling stressed out, what impact is this having on you? How are you feeling about that? What emotion are you having? Is it okay? Let's honor that. But now let's set that aside and let's focus on what we're doing. You will be amazed that when you employ some of these techniques, the positive impact it has on your psyche and your ability to work through and bring your best brain to the experience. I have included some other types of techniques in the materials that I gave Harry, but I will share a couple from direct experience. What direct experience is all about, you all, is mindfulness, being present. So a way to stay cool or calm under pressure is to not think about the past, not be anxious about the future, but bring yourself to present moment. Many people call it mindfulness. If you just engage in the here and now, it brings in different brain circuitry and it helps you. It really helps you to think, and it gets rid of all this other stuff. So what I'm going to look at is just two techniques, the breathing technique, and I'm going to talk about mindset. Breathing. We all can do it. It's simple, and you have it at your disposal every minute of every day. You will be amazed, and many of you probably use this, is when you're feeling stressed, when something alerts you, if you just took a minute and go, I'm going to breathe. Breathe in slowly, hold it, and breathe out. However you want, 5, 7, 9, 3, 5, 7. Breathe in, hold it, breathe out. What actually is happening when you're using that breathing technique is you're moving from that fight or flight, that sympathetic nervous system, and it's triggering the different part of your brain to be used, that parasympathetic, that top-down thinking. So use it often and be aware of your breath often, you guys. Many times we walk around stressed and you know you're holding your breath kind of in your throat. When you're aware that you're holding your breath in your throat, stop, slow down, breathe. I guarantee you, just doing that, if you all just did it now, and I don't know, I can't see you, but if you just do that now, I mean, you're all going through challenging time. You're going through this job search. Harry talked about it. Brian talked about it. It's stressful. Use this often. Use this in interview. Also silence, breathe. Silence for a minute. When somebody asks you an interview question, you don't have to respond right away, because many times we might be feeling stressed and we don't have our thinking. You know what? You don't have to respond in a nanosecond. Shift your body. When your body moves, your brain grooves, okay? Shift your body. Shoulders back, head up. Breathe. Silence. You know, I listened to, I don't know, it was a documentary about the breath and about awkward silence. And they talked about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and how when she was asked a question, many times there was this awkward silence. She didn't answer it right away. She was thinking and employing that top-down thinking. So I implore you to do that. It will be huge for you. And then the last one that I want to talk about before we get on to the SCARF model is mindset. Remember, I said you have this supercomputer that you walk around with every day. God blessed you with this. Use it to its greatest advantage. What is the mindset? What program do you have here? What you believe becomes true for you. What you believe creates your actions. Your actions create your results. And if you don't like your results, go back to, what do I believe? What are you telling yourself? I'm not very capable. I don't think I can do that. Or are you telling yourself, I am capable. I am talented. I've got this. Your mindset, your beliefs create the world around you. Think about, I'm reminded of Roger Bannister. And for those of you who might not remember who Roger Bannister is, he in 1954, I think, he ran the mile and he broke the 4-minute mile. Prior to Roger Bannister doing that, everybody said it couldn't be done. In fact, there was like these blockers, these mystical barriers that said, oh my gosh, if you run faster than a 4-minute mile, your heart could explode. Then what happened? Roger Bannister ran like a 3.54-minute mile. And then guess what? Everybody else started doing it. So I kind of shifted down to that self-limiting beliefs. And I'll go back up here, but think about what you're telling yourself. Be aware of your self-talk, guys. You have 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts every single day. And we know that 80% of those are negative. So what you need to do is be aware of what you're telling yourself and cancel clear if it's a self-limiting belief. If it is a belief that's negative, there is that parable that the Cherokee tribe told their young about the 2 wolves. One wolf was darkness and despair, and the other was light and joy. And the children would say, which one wins? The one you feed. Feed it limitless possibilities. Change your belief. Go into affirmation. When you wake up in the morning, consciously shape your day. Before your feet hit the floor, maybe it's a prayer you say. Maybe it's things you're grateful for. What is that morning ritual that's positive that you do first thing that sets your mind on a positive path? Does that mean nothing negative is going to happen? Absolutely not. Things happen that are challenging. But if we start to program for I am talented, I am capable, I matter, I am grateful for all the things that I was given by God, then you start to open up possibility, opportunity, and solution. And I implore you to not look at your phone for at least the first 20 minutes, because many times, what do we see on that phone? Negative news, and that can impact your day. So choose your day, shape your day, create a ritual, create an intention, be grateful, have some affirmations that are in your back pocket that you can tell yourself to move yourself from threat to reward. All right. Whew. I'm going to take a breath here quick before we get started on SCARF. And we've got about, I don't know, it's 8:38 right now. So we've got about 15 minutes left. And we talked about the brain and the conscious brain and the non-conscious brain and threat and reward. And now what I want to turn us to is how that all works in the context of SCARF. And you might say to me, Julie, what in the heck is SCARF? And for those of you who have not heard about SCARF, SCARF is an acronym for status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. So what does that mean? So big deal. Well, these are all about really important neuroscience discoveries that were made that say, these are things and domains that impact us either in a threat circuitry or reward circuitry from our social environment. So SCARF is really all about how does our brain act and interact socially, and what are the domains that are triggered from the interactions that we have with one another in our social environment. And if you think about social, the workplace is one huge social environment. So understanding these things, knowing what they trigger, understanding what they may trigger for you, and figuring out how you can shift them and offset if something triggers you from a threat really can put you in the winner's seat, can really put you in a positive place. So the research in a nutshell really said, here's what they found. They said, you know, we're social creatures and our brain treats social threats with the same intensity as physical threats. Remember what I said earlier? The brain doesn't differentiate. So when I said, are you part of the in group or the out group? That social connection impacts you, can impact you positively, or it can impact you negatively and have a really huge impact on the outcomes you get. We've already talked about our capacity to make decisions, to problem solve, to understand, to collaborate are impacted by threat negatively and impacted by reward positively. And we talked about that threat response can come on faster, stronger, last longer than reward because our brain wants to protect us. And it has a negativity bias. And so let's think about all of this in the context of how we show up socially and how these domains can be impacted. One of the really big surprises that the neuroscientists and social psychologists realized was that the strongest threats that people experienced were actually social and not physical. And they also said our brain processes, in the same part of our brain that processes physical pain, social pain is processed. So let's think about that. You know, today is, I think today is, mindset health or mental health action day. Let's think about that and let's honor that. Many times we as a society don't honor social pain. We'll honor physical pain. Somebody could have a broken leg and we go, oh man, oh, are you okay? Boy, that looked like that hurt. Geez, you know what I mean? I hope you feel better soon. And we're really empathetic towards someone who's experiencing that physical pain. But are we really that empathetic when people are experiencing social pain? If somebody feels like they were rejected in the work environment, rejected at the water cooler, rejected if you're a student and you're rejected out on in the classroom, that social pain is real and it impacts people's ability to connect and to think. And oftentimes we as a society say, suck it up. Don't do that anymore. Social pain is real. Mental health is important. And let's really be aware and honor that and care for people as they're going through that. So we're going to talk about each letter in SCARF. I'm going to tell you what each of those mean and give you some indicators about what could be triggered in that status mode from a threat or what could be triggered from an reward perspective, because we want to move from away to this toward so that we have better outcomes, better performance, and better thinking. Okay. All right, y'all. So status. What is status all about? In a nutshell, I am valued. I am not valued. That's what status stands for. And know that your brain non-consciously is scanning the environment and continually saying to yourself or feeding yourself, am I valued? Am I capable? Am I smart? Am I in the top or am I in the middle or am I in the bottom? So when we're feeling good about ourselves, when we feed ourselves positive and we honor ourselves, our status can be increased and we feel reward. When we have negative self-talk, our status is decreased, and that's a threat state. And guess what happens when we're in threat state? We don't think as well. Also, know that you're constantly comparing yourself to other people. Just be aware of that. That happens. You're also comparing yourself to your previous self. Am I better than I was before? Am I learning? Think about what you're going through with Crossroads. You guys are gaining new skills, new information. Put that into your status brain. Hey, I feel good about myself. I'm learning new things. Now I'll bring it to the work environment. Status. Hey, when I'm told that project is that I worked on and did really well, status is increased. When I'm told, oh, that's not so well, status is decreased. The way that we talk to one another is really important. And there are some tools, again, that I sent here, Harry, that you can have that give you some ideas of when you're trying to think about status and put people in a reward state. Do less of this, do more of this. Say less of this, say more of this. And I have that for each of the components in the acronyms. Okay, certainty. That's the C in SCARF. Remember, the brain does not like change. The brain is a prediction machine. It wants to predict outcomes. What this one is all about is, I am safe, I am not safe. Remember, if there's things that change, the brain will alert and alarm you and potentially put you in an away state. You want to have the brain put you in a toward state. And even if change is good, it can trigger some concern. So some of the things that you need to do is you need to be transparent. You need to, if we think about the situation as we're in job hunting mode, things that give you certainty, a schedule, a routine. Don't let that slide, because there's other triggers that are happening, right? And so in order to quell that anxiety, in order to dampen that arousal, give yourself the gift of certainty by creating a routine for yourself that you adhere to, that you follow day in, day out. Here's what I'm going to do on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. On Fridays, I'm done at noon so I can have some family time. Here's how I'm going to network. I mean, provide yourself these guardrails. It will really be helpful for your brain. When you're back in the work environment, think about things like transparency, giving people schedules, telling people what you want to meet with them about so they don't have to worry, oh, geez, Julie, can we meet today at 2 o'clock? Oh my gosh, what do they want to meet with me about? My brain goes into this threat state. I don't know. Give people agendas. So those are some ideas, and there's more ideas in the materials that I have for you. The A in SCARF stands for autonomy. What is this all about? I have a choice. I don't have a choice. Autonomy is critical. Remember when I talked about the level threats 1, 2, and 3, and I said certainty, and I said autonomy. Pick places in your life where you feel like you can choose, you have choices. Capitalize on those at that time, because that starts to decrease your sense of stress. When I feel like I have a choice, I'm less stressed. Even if you have a high stress situation, if you feel like you have choices, you experience less stress. Conversely, if you have a low stress situation, but you feel like you have no choices, you can experience more stress. So think about this autonomy and do for yourself, give yourself choices, things that you can pick from that quells your anxiety, brings your best brain to the table. When you're back in the work environment, or when you're dealing with your kids even, giving them a choice. Do you want to do this, or do we want to do this? Do you want to do your homework at this time of the day, or do you want to do it here? Co-create. You know, do I want to work from home these days of the week and then come into the office these days of the week? I mean, if you get into leadership roles, be aware of these things, because they can impact people bringing their best brains to work, engaging and motivating in a different way. Autonomy is really important. A sense of control is really important and helps people to bring their best brains if they feel like they have choices. The R in SCARF stands for relatedness. Remember, I talked about, am I part of the in group or am I part of the out group? Do I have a group of people that I connect with? Am I part of a Crossroads group? Do I have groups outside of here that help me, that lift me up, that I have a connection? We are social creatures. Our brain is social. We need it. When we feel like we're part of an in-group, we feel less stressed. When we feel like we're shoved out and we're excluded and we don't have a group, we're more stressed. Just like status, your brain is constantly scanning environments for friend versus foe. So if you're new to Crossroads and when you meet in person or you meet on Zoom meetings, you're going to scan that environment. Is there anybody I know? The minute you find somebody you know or you kind of know, that stress is a little bit down. And then you feel like I have friend. But your brain processes foe before it processes friend. Your brain also processes not trustworthy before it processes trustworthy. So think about some of the things that you can do to connect with people so that you feel friend and toward, or so that you can feel similarities to people and connect and begin to trust. Because when I trust, when I have shared goals, I have shared accountabilities, I feel like I share something in common with you, I feel like I'm part of a team. Now I can employ my best brain. And you can do that in this job search during this time to get on board that prefrontal cortex that's going to help you broaden your thinking, look at possibilities, opportunities, and solutions versus tunnel vision, and bring your best brain, innovation, risk-taking, complex problem solving. All right, the F in SCARF stands for fairness. Fairness is a big deal. And it doesn't mean that everybody has to be treated the same. It just is treated equitably. Am I treated equitably? Am I treated fairly, or am I not? Is the environment fair or is it not? Does this organization adhere to its values or does it not? Those things are triggered for fairness, and we are very attuned to fair as human beings. And if in fact we feel that something isn't fair, it says here it can account for 20% difference in a decrease in productivity. Fairness is a big deal. And so think about that when you get back into your work environment. Think about that in your life. Think about if that is triggered, how you can bring on some reward in some of these other areas if you're feeling something is unfair, to dampen your reaction. Because not only will fairness impact you in the areas of the brain that we've already talked about, but there's this other area of the brain that's the area that is that handles disgust, and it goes into that area too. You get really upset. So fairness is really important. Be attuned to that and think about and look at some of those materials that I've sent in ways that you can employ fairness. You can do things to increase your feelings of fairness. And then what I want to share with you is, we've talked about each of these areas, and we've talked about threat and reward. When one of these areas is triggered, it causes threat. However, we know that when a situation happens, multiple areas could be triggered. So there could be a way that you're applying for jobs. And maybe you're uncertain. Oh man, do I have all the skills for this job? Certainty is triggered. I sent my resume in and they didn't get back to me. Relatedness could be triggered. Status could be triggered. So just off the top of my head, you have 3 of those areas triggered in your job search. It's really important for you to employ offsetting effect. So if some threat is happening, and we've talked about this, if there's some level of threat that's happening, pick an area of SCARF that you can provide yourself a reward, that you can reframe and think about it differently. It doesn't have to be in the same area that was triggered. Status could get triggered, but you could give yourself a reward in autonomy. I've got a choice here about what I do next, you see? And that then dampens that threat there because you're offsetting it with a reward. Hopefully that makes some sense. That's the things that we need to do, because life happens. These things are going to be triggered, and we just have to be aware of them. And then we have to be aware individually how we can offset them for ourselves during this time. And when we're back in the work environment, be aware of these things. How do we offset it for our colleagues, for people that work for us? How do we use this information to increase our leadership capabilities? All right, it's 8:55 now, Harry, and some of these next slides that I have are just really question slides, and we don't have to necessarily go through them in depth, but I'd like you to think about them. And if you have the deck, you know, think about, like I just talked about, multiplier effect. When you're going through a situation, it might make sense to write SCARF on a piece of paper and go, how am I being triggered? Maybe from a threat. SCARF on the other side. What can I do to offset it? Just slowing down and thinking about what's impacting you and how you can offset it is going to be huge in the way that you perform, in the way that you think, in the way that you feel, in your mindset, to make this supercomputer work the best it can. And then if you haven't done so, I sent to Harry a link. You can go online and you can take a SCARF assessment. It takes about, I don't know, 5-7 minutes. And it gives you an indicator of the triggers that might be more dominant for you. Know that every single one of these areas in these domains trigger us all, but there might be some that are more prevalent for you. So I would recommend you take that SCARF assessment. It can vary, but it will give you some indicator and some ideas for how you can mitigate some of the things that you're going through. And then I would just make sure that you think about these things, work on these things, be aware. Like I said at the beginning, what did I learn? Knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. What can I take from what I learned today? Even if it's one nugget, that's going to help me. That's a superpower. Okay. Be aware. Life is 10% of what happens to you, but it's 90% of how you react to it. Employ some of these techniques. Be aware of what is going on in your brain. Don't beat yourself up for it, but use some of the techniques that you learned and slow down to go fast. Choose a different way to react. There is this old adage that says, first you create your habits, then your habits create you. What healthy habit are you going to create today that will help you become a better version of yourself? And that's all I have for you today. And I know it was a lot, and I apologize for just fire hosing you. Hopefully you got something out of this. So I will stop sharing now.
Terrific. Julie, that was terrific. I took a bunch of notes, and it just really does make so much sense that when we know how our brains naturally react, we can understand what's going on with us emotionally and how we're reacting to others, and make better decisions along the way. And so very helpful, certainly applicable to a job search in the sense of knowing how we're coming across and how we're reacting to things that are going on in the process. Thanks all for joining us. You will be receiving an email tomorrow with follow-up on all the things we talked about. I did send an email out to everybody that was registered with all the information that Julie had provided us. And with the YouTube recording of this webinar, there will be links in the information section for you to be able to get to and download all the information again if you need it there. So that'll be up probably by the end of the day, and at tomorrow morning at the very latest. Certainly take advantage of the other things I talked about, our classes, our coaching, the prayer support, certainly the networking group each week. and check into our next couple of webinars. I'm really looking forward to the next two that we have coming up as well. Next one is on Thursday morning, June 3rd, and that's with Dave Cornell talking about cultivate courage in your job search. And if you haven't figured out already, this can be a draining and sometimes fearful experience going through this process. And Dave does a tremendous job of talking through how to cultivate courage and be able to step out of your comfort zone and do things that might be a little bit scary at first, but how do you get through that? And so you don't want to miss that one. It's really, I think, going to be very applicable. And then on June 10th, our webinar is going to be a special event that we did last year for the first time and was very well received and great information. We're going to do it again. It's a corporate talent acquisition Q&A panel. We have 5 recruiters and talent acquisition leaders from companies all over, and they're going to answer any questions you have, anything that you want to know about what happens to your resume when you apply, to how they make decisions, how they go through the hiring process, why some people get hired or don't. Whatever questions you may have, it's free game, and would certainly encourage you to watch that coming up on June 10th. And actually, a kind of a distant preview, but our following webinar is going to be pretty terrific too. It'll be Dave Sparkman, who used to be the Chief Culture Officer for United Health Group, a Fortune 5 company, and he led the culture initiative there for many years. And he's going to talk about how do you determine if an organization has the right culture for you. And I think it's going to be very insightful, and he certainly knows of what he speaks. So take advantage of all those things. Glad you joined us today. Come back in the future, and hope you all land a job soon. Take care. Thanks for joining us.